Today, we welcome Jeff Pearson, a true wellness hero, thriving despite hydrocephalus, a condition where excess cerebral spinal fluid builds up in the brain. After 7 brain surgeries, chronic migraines, and involuntary muscle movements, Jeff took control, searched for, and found out real solutions. Now, through his show, Invisible Conditions, he's bringing hope to others navigating hidden health struggles. Welcome to WellWaveNOW, your portal for actionable wellness insights. We, Breck Rice, Dr. Bob Levine, and myself, Tim Daniels, are your wellness catalysts, committed to elevating your health, enhancing your functionality, and optimizing your performance at every life stage. WellWaveNOW, where timeless wisdom lights your wellness path. Again, I want to say I'm honored to welcome Jeff Pearson, an advocate for invisible conditions and the host of Invisible Conditions on E360 TV. Jeff has lived with hydrocephalus since infancy, undergoing multiple brain surgeries, yet he has defied expectations to lead a full and thriving life. His journey includes overcoming debilitating migraines, involuntary muscle movement, and much more. Instead of accepting a life of limitations, he sought solutions. Today, we'll uncover his powerful story and what he's doing to help others.
Hey, welcome to the show, Jeff. It's great to have you on.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate it, guys. This is great.
Yeah, enjoyed learning more about your TV channel, and so we'll get into that a little later on in our show. We'll have some specific questions about that, but let's start from the very beginning. And take us through growing up with this condition, and when did your parents even realize this to start with?
Question. Yeah, it's with people with hydrocephalus, this can be discovered at any age, can be caused by many things. And so my story is definitely unique, just like everybody's with hydrocephalus. My particular discovery of my condition was at 2 weeks old. We went to the 2-week checkup, and after being born, and they started doing the same measurements: how long is the baby, how much does the baby weigh, and then one of those measurements is the head circumference around here. And that one was a little bit off. They said, yeah, it's just a little bit outside the norm. Mom and Dad, don't worry, it's probably nothing. Let's get a CAT scan, just see what's going on. Well, sure enough.
And then when they said outside the norm, Jeff, was that, so as people look to identify, was it smaller? Was it larger than normal? Or?
It was a little bit larger than normal. So that's neither here nor there, but they said, let's do a CAT scan to see what's going on, see why it's outside the norm. And so they did, and found out that one of the ventricles in my brain was blocked. And so they said, okay, well, in 1977, when they discovered that at 2 weeks old, they have a very similar solution to what they do in 2025, and that's brain surgery. And so my first brain surgery was at 2 weeks old, and they put me under and drilled me a little hole back here and put a little catheter in there to access that fluid that wasn't draining, and attached a shunt to it right here, which I still have, and attached a cord to that to drain that, reroute it. It's basically gave me an artificial ventricle. I didn't have that one built in.
Your parents must have been flipping out.
I'd give good money to be a fly on the wall, go back to 1977 and see the look on their face when they found out that 2-week-old little boy's going to have brain surgery.
Brain surgery, yeah.
I can't imagine. Our son had to undergo emergency surgery at a month old, but it was for something really routine. I mean, this is very common, hydrocephalus, but still scary. Brain surgery is no joke. Right. So I get it. Our son had to undergo unexpected surgery at a month old for something very routine too, but it's still scary.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Good on the provider for, taking the extra steps and saying, hey, let's look into this. Because what if they didn't? What's the alternative had they not discovered?
Right. If they had not done that, so that fluid has to go somewhere. The brain is producing a quart of this fluid every single day of your life. And your brain, your skull only has so much room. When you're 2 weeks old, for those first few weeks, your skull is kind of pliable, so it can grow, but it can only grow to a certain point, and then it starts to damage the brain. It starts to compress the brain, starts to pressurize that, and then eventually it can cause so much brain damage that it actually kills you. So it can be fatal if it's not caught in time. So
yeah, and it's pretty hard for a newborn to explain, hey, something's not right. So.
I mean, true.
So tell us about that early medical journey. Was it just that one surgery, or was there multiple surgeries? Is it something that has to be checked often?
So it's multiple. For me, it's multiple. Everybody's story is different, but for me, I've had 7 brain surgeries over my 48 years on this planet, and the first one was at 2 weeks old. I had another one at 6 months old. I had another one at 18. And then I had a nice long break for about 18 years. And then I had one, and then I had two actually within 24 hours in 2014. I had one in 2018, and my last one was in 2021. And so the main reason that they need to do a revision, a replacement of the hardware is malfunction. If something goes wrong, and the trick is these shunts have actually one of the highest failure rates of any medical device in the history of medicine. So it's not great, despite using the same technology. I mean, they've upgraded the technology and they've got better devices and different things, but the treatment's basically the same.
How do you know? How do you know when it's failed?
Headaches like you wouldn't believe.
Oh, is that right? When you start getting headaches, you
yeah, starting to get headaches. That's my experience. I know some other symptoms that other people experience are, nausea and throwing up and different things like that. But my main thing was just headaches.
Probably depends on where the swelling's occurring to dictate what the symptoms might be.
With those of us with hydrocephalus, I kind of affectionately call us one term out there is hydro warriors, and I call hydro warriors. I like to say that we're headache connoisseurs. We know what this headache means versus this one. This one might mean I just slept wrong or I didn't drink enough water today. This one means, okay, go to the hospital. You get very aware of what's going on in your body, in your brain, in your head.
Do you think your parents were hypersensitive then with you as a child? Because I know how many falls and bangs, and I don't know how many times my kids smack their head against something.
Oh yeah.
Could you imagine? I would literally have to put you in a plastic bubble, I think, Jeff.
Hey, keep wearing a helmet forever. Yeah. No, it's true. It's true. And of course, my parents worried just like every other parent. To their credit, I love my parents. They're still around. They're thriving. They live up in Oregon, and we're going to see them actually in about a week. They were amazing. Growing up, I don't know how, because my dad's not so much a warrior, but my mom is a lot about stuff. And so, especially with this kind of thing, understandably, they let me live life, man. They, because we didn't have a lot of complications from surgeries, by the grace of God, I really didn't have a lot of complications, and there really wasn't a lot to worry about. I've never had to take a regular prescription medication. I've never really had any adverse effects at this point. And so they just kind of let me go, do my thing. I played, of course, they discouraged things that literally caused me to bang my head against things like football, rugby, soccer. It was like, hey, maybe we should do band, maybe we should do choir, the things. So they were smart like that, but really they let me live my life. I skateboarded when I was a kid. I've still snowboard. I started snowboarding at like 15. I've been snowboarding for 30 years. That kind of stuff. They just kind of let me do the thing, and made me feel normal, and was like, you know what, you're good, man. Go do your thing. And
Nice.
so I'm very thankful for that, because it could have gone a very different direction if they done the helicopter parent thing and didn't let me go outside and put me in a bubble. And
well, yeah, having an invisible condition, something that's not visible to, like if somebody has a broken leg and they're either on crutches in a wheelchair, you see that visibly, but having an invisible condition, it's almost like, your parents should have put a sign on you that said, don't play rough with this child or something, right?
I'm glad they didn't, man, because I had a really cool childhood. I'm very glad that they didn't do that. Because you still got to let the kid be a kid, man. You got to, unless you absolutely have to do something intervention wise, let him be a kid. Yes, I've fallen down on stuff. Yes, I banged my head. Yes, I've wiped down on my bike, my skateboard. I broke my arm skateboarding. I did all the things, but you still got to let him be a kid. So
so your parents kind of let you be a kid, and enabled you to do certain activities. Might have guided you a little bit, but didn't restrict them. Were your educators, were your teachers and neighborhood parents made aware of your condition?
Probably. I'm sure my mom was the first in line to tell my teachers what was going on, to make sure that nobody, like overtly did anything crazy. But I think to their credit, I think my parents kind of left it alone too. And it's like, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Let's just see what happens.
So did you tell your friends about it when you were growing up?
Very, very rarely. Some of my good friends that I still have today know about it, of course. And but I didn't really make it a spectacle of it, because I didn't really feel like it was a big deal, because it just, you go to sleep, you wake up, you carry on, everything's cool. So I didn't really feel like it was a big deal either. So I didn't really talk about it too much.
Can you say something about where the shunt is located and how is it noticeable, or is it all underneath the skin, or where does the fluid go? And maybe if
So
you
yeah,
did any of the doctors tell you uh, how this ventricle got blocked? I'm just curious about that.
that I don't know. I may if they know, I never found out.
Okay.
And it's really a moot point at this point anyway. I mean, they figured it out, so I don't. It doesn't really matter why or how. They got it taken care of. But
Yeah. Okay.
maybe at some point they figured it out and told my parents, but I've never found out why.
Mm.
But as far as where it is, you can't really see it. It's I don't know. You can. It's right there. I'm touching it right now. That's
Yeah.
it right there. It's
Yeah.
under my big thick head of hair, and I've got a big scar like this that wraps right around it. And they just, every time they have to do surgery, they just shave a little landing strip there and cut, peel it back, and go to work. So
Did they
they've
put
never
a
really
hinge
even
in so that they can make it easier to access the skull? Just put a little hinge in there.
right. Somebody said, you know what,
surgeries. Wow.
if you ever start shaving your head or anything, you could just put a little zippers to a tattoo right there. You could,
Yeah.
just get in there, guys. No problem.
All right. Now what about Dr. Bob's morbid curiosity of where the fluid goes?
Not so morbid. No, you're good. There's actually 2 or 3 different places where they typically like to put it to reroute that fluid, because it's really easy to reabsorb in these places. And so forgive me, I'm not technical with all this, but I can tell you that for a long time, for about the first 20, 30 years, I had it coming down like this, and it went straight down, and it drained into the right side of my abdominal cavity. And it just kind of drained in there and
You mean you
reabsorbed
had
into my
something
body.
on the outside coming down? You had like a tube?
No. I have a tube now. It's right. If
Oh,
you can see it, there's a big scar right there, but there's a tube inside my neck right there, and it
okay.
comes right down, and it came right down here and drained into the right side of my abdominal cavity. Then a bunch of scar tissue was built up over the years, and then they had to redirect that, and it came over to the left side of my abdominal cavity. And then most recently, in 2014, I think, with I had 2 back-to-back brain surgeries within 24 hours in March of 14. And I think in the process of that surgery, they put it like this, and then they wrapped it around underneath my right arm and now it's draining into the pleural space behind my right lung. The difference, like the lung, and then there's a little pocket, and then there's a lining of the outside the lung, and that little pocket in between is where it's reabsorbing now.
So is there like a pint going in there every day?
I have no idea
Okay,
what's
that's
actually
true.
going in there every day. I just know it's reabsorbing and it's not causing a problem. So if it
Yeah.
ain't broke, don't fix it.
Right.
So
Pardon all my questions. I'm very
no,
interested.
one other place
Yes.
that they can do it is the pleural space around the heart, which I really don't want to do unless it's last resort and we absolutely have to, because that makes me a little nervous to be gathering fluid around my heart. That doesn't make me excited. But outside of my lung, it's great. As long as it's doing its job, I'm fine.
Now, when you say pleural space, can define that if you will.
Pleural space is, so if the lung is if the lung is here, then the pleural space is kind of there's a little bit of space between the lung and the line and the outside lining, and that space there between the lung and the outside lining is, best of my knowledge, is called the pleural space around the lung. So then there's a similar spot around the heart. There's a pocket around the heart called the pleural space around the heart, which I would like to prevent from having to use. But around the lung, that's fine. It's been working great for a long time. So
okay, absolutely. So you've come through, and so you've taken us through your childhood, which is great, and the surgeries were a success and enable you to kind of live and not feel that pressure on the brain. But then at some point, was it you started suffering some symptoms, and where did that come from, and what were they, Jeff?
That's a good question. I don't really, there is not usually a rhyme or reason to why these surgeries need to happen. It's just malfunctioning of the shunt. But in 2013, so I'll back up just for a second. From the time that I was 18 to the time I was 36, I graduated high school, got married to my amazing wife, who we actually met in 7th grade band class. So that encouragement to go take clarinet and not play soccer was actually pretty cool. I got to meet my wife in band class. And so we got married in 1999. We started having kids in 2003. We've got 3 beautiful children. We bought a house. We did all the things. And then in 2013, all of a sudden I am working at the job that I had at the time, and all of a sudden I had this pressure in my abdomen, and it was excruciating. I thought it was appendicitis. Got to the ER. rode in one of those lovely $high taxis with the sirens, and I think they call them ambulances, and rode to the ER, and turns out it was obstruction. It was a bowel obstruction caused by scar tissue buildup in my abdomen from all the previous surgeries over my life. That it just pinched off my intestine, and they had to free that up, and then 6 months later, they discovered a bacterial infection in the cerebral spinal fluid in my abdomen. Thankfully, it was not in my, surrounding my brain. That could be spinal meningitis. That could be really dicey, really quick. And so they had me in the hospital for 3 weeks in 2014 and kind of neutralized that bacteria, got that out of there enough to do surgery, replaced the shunt, replaced the tubing, replaced everything. Had to do it again because they missed getting it in the exact right spot in my brain. So I said, nope, guys, you missed it. The headaches are still there. So they did it again. And then after that, I was like, okay, we weren't used to this. We weren't used to this multiple surgeries in a row thing. So we're like, okay, we're good. Then I started having headaches. Then they started turning into migraines. Then they started turning into constant migraines. And I was having migraines at this point in 2014, 24/7, 24 hours a day. Migraine level headaches, and that lasted for about a year. And I was, searching out anything I could to relieve these headaches. And I went back to the surgeon. By no fault of his own, I don't blame him for this, but his answer didn't make my wife very happy. I said, "Can you help me? You're the last one that was in there. What do we do about these headaches?" And he said, "Geez, I'm sorry. I guess you're just going to have to live with headaches." Right. That was a mild version of my wife's response. Yeah. I thought she was going to jump across the table at this guy. And so we said, okay, thank you very much. We're out. Let's go looking. So we're
not coming back.
Right. God willing, I never have to come back to you for anything. Let's get out of here.
Yeah.
And so we started looking, and obviously I felt like, okay, well, the medical community is no help today. This is the medical community has given up on me as far as getting rid of these headaches. So where else can we look? So we started turning to the alternative world and started looking at everything. I mean, I tried a whole bunch of stuff over the next several months, and we ended up finding what worked was we found a chiropractic neurologist, which I didn't even think was a thing. That's new, right? And then he was able to do some things, and it really reduced the frequency and severity of those, but it didn't get rid of them. But we thought, hey, go ahead.
Yeah, we don't let you off the hook throwing out fancy terms like chiropractic neurologist without explaining what is the difference between a regular chiropractor and a chiropractic.
I just call him the overachiever. I think he just went for the extra degree, honestly. That's what I kind of jokingly call him when I see him. So you have to go to a lot of school to be a chiropractor, right? And then you have to go quite a bit of school to get your doctor of neurology as well. And he did both. So he had a very good working knowledge of the brain and the spinal column and all the, with the neurology degree. And then he had the chiropractic knowledge. And so between those two together, he was able to do some really cool stuff.
But what
Probably
he did
not your
primarily,
next door neighbor either. He was probably somewhere across the country.
Actually, he was 10 minutes down the road in Colorado Springs.
Wow.
I know it's funny. He's the only chiropractic neurologist in the state of Colorado, and his office was literally 10 minutes down the road. I was pretty excited about that.
but Jeff, what he did though was chiropractic manipulation. I mean, he wasn't doing other things, was he?
So he did chiropractic manipulation. It was head to toe though. He was working from my head to my feet. I mean, it wasn't just snap, crackle, pop, up here. It was on my side, standing up, laying down, laying on my back, laying on my stomach, curled up in a ball, spread out this way. He had a lot of unique things that I have never seen a chiropractor do before. And so I think that was the ticket, was the neurology piece that gave him a little extra knowledge, well, a lot of extra knowledge of other pieces of this puzzle that needed to be addressed. And so after he was, after a few weeks of seeing him, those headaches were dissipated a little bit, and the frequency wasn't as bad. It was like I got some breathing room. I could.
So you went to zero pain level at certain times of the day.
I don't know if I'd say zero. It was an improvement.
Okay, so you went from like 8 to 3 or something.
Maybe I went from like a 10 to maybe a 6.
Oh wow! So you're still.
And then, but that's not the end of the story, because we kept looking. See, we said, okay, if this happened, if we can find this, then there's more hope out there. There's probably somebody that could help us get rid of them.
Before you go to the next item, Jeff. One, how how did you begin? This is what you said. What year was this?
2014, 2015 really is when we really started looking.
Yeah, so the internet was out there some at that point in time, but it wasn't still as populated as now. So how did you begin your research? How and what else did you look at? Did you tried a number of things before the chiropractic neurology approach started giving you some relief? So what else did you look at? How did you find these things out then? How would you recommend that people look for I know we did call it
Yeah,
alternative medicine is called alternative medicine. I actually don't like that term any longer because it means, hey, this is conventional, this is snake oil, this is out there. I can't
I
think of a
know.
better term for it, but let's say
I call it non-insurance covered care.
there you go. Other
Expensive stuff.
approaches,
Yeah,
non-surgery, non-medication approaches. How'd you find these things? What else did you look at? How'd you find these things?
sure. Well, and let me address one thing you said there. You said the alternative versus the traditional, right? Everybody's talking about traditional medical care. It's
Mhm.
not traditional. This
Conventional.
stuff
Right.
that's this doctor medical hospital stuff has really only been around since the 1940s, whatever. Like it's been around less than 100 years.
Mhm.
All this other stuff that's now all of a sudden alternative has been around for thousands of years and
Right.
working great. So how did that become alternative? Why isn't this traditional Western medicine model called alternative? It's been around the least amount of time, but
Right.
don't get me started on that.
And that's why,
Um,
for those reasons and others, why I don't like the term alternative, the term conventional versus
exactly.
non-conventional, term standard versus non-standard. But I haven't found a better ways of capturing it.
Well,
No, there's just not a good way to say it. Yeah,
I like conventional, which is convention today. That's what we do. It's conventional. And
sure.
then I like traditional for everything that's been done for many hundreds of years. That's
There
what
you go. I like that.
yeah.
Traditional.
Yeah.
Yes, because yeah, it's true. A lot of this stuff is going back thousands of years. That's traditional. Yeah,
Yeah.
so I agree with that.
Yeah.
100%.
Okay, now it's time for you uh, to quit being a Coloradan
All right.
and
So here we
and
go.
act like a Nebraskan, your
So,
next door neighbor, and start taking us down the straight path of
so yeah, we
how'd you
started
try
looking.
and how'd you find these things?
I know it's all good.
So look, before
So
Jeff,
yeah,
before you go there, I just want to point out to everybody who's listening out there
yeah.
that your pathway is a pathway of success. It's a pathway of
Mhm.
commitment, determination, seeing the future of 100% health. And I'd love our listeners to understand that anybody can get this to happen with the commitment and the passion and the future vision for optimal health. So I just want to say that's what I'm hearing from your story, which I think is brilliant. So thank you for letting me
Yeah.
interject that.
Good point,
Yeah, good
Dr.
call. Thank you for saying that because yes, it's true. Yeah, and we can get into this if we have time, but yes, I would consider myself 100% healthy right now. It's I am totally 100% healthy at this point, and there's a lot of things that we've done to get me there, but it is possible. It is not only possible, it's probable. With the right approach, you can be 100% healthy, even with somebody that are 7 brain surgeries. You can still be 100% healthy. So one thing that one of the things we tried is cranial sacral therapy, which is kind of like massage almost, but barely, like they're barely touching you. I don't even know how it works.
They hold your head, they hold your neck, they don't move
Right.
very much. Yeah.
Yeah, depending on the method, man. I mean, some of them, like this particular person I saw was like barely touching me, but I could feel it, and that one actually made the pain worse for some reason. I don't know. Everybody's different, So some people it works great. For me, I couldn't wait to get out of there. It made it
Yeah,
worse.
might have been that
But
you spent so much time trying to focus on other things to not think about the pain, but now the focus is on your head and you're like, yep, that's where the pain
maybe
is.
Also,
it's possible.
uh,
Yeah, I don't know what the reason was, but man, I couldn't
yeah.
wait to get out of there.
Yeah, you know what
Uh,
I found in working with thousands of people is that sometimes you have to move through some more discomfort to get the more comfortable.
oh,
It
Yeah.
just
I got a
happens that
story
way
for
sometimes.
that too.
Okay.
Yeah, we got got a good one from 2021 or 2023. Remind me about that. I'll tell you about that. That was the most recent thing that really nipped in the bud some crazy after effects of that brain surgery in 2021. But the one in 14, so cranial sacral was the main thing we went after. We did see several chiropractors. We saw several traditional doctors. They tried to do vagus nerve stimulation. They tried to do, which didn't work. I didn't want to do Botox. I didn't want to have anything to do with big needles or big medications. I was looking for something natural because I knew that I just didn't want to. I just didn't want to do that
Yeah, sure.
as natural as possible. And so we did do the traditional chiropractic. That didn't really do much as far as pain relief. for some reason that neurology twist on it was awesome, and it really reduced the frequency and severity of those headaches. It didn't get rid of it, but it reduced it enough that I could take a breath. I felt like I had a little bit of breathing room. You know, it wasn't constant.
So your reprieve was when you went from a 10 to a 6 for a little while, and then
Yep.
back to a 10.
And then sometimes it would spike, and then sometimes it would go down, and but it was unpredictable. But at least I had those moments of reprieve where I could just,
Right.
oh, thank God, you
So
know.
let's go back a little bit.
Okay.
One part of the portion is, so how did you and your wife find these things? Was it just talking to people? Was it looking on the internet at that point in time? And so how did you find them? How did you determine which ones you were going to try? You know, like, and which ones you weren't? Like Botox, okay, it did not. You found out about it, but it didn't fit with your philosophy. So how'd you find the things, and how'd you determine which ones? How'd you vet them? How'd you determine which ones you were going to try?
So the biggest thing is with anybody that's looking for this kind of thing, go with people that you trust or that are referred by people you trust. That is the only thing that we went on. You know, we talked to trusted people that we knew. We talked to people that had been through similar situations. We talked to people that, you know, we didn't really just jump on Google and start looking things up, because that can just lead down a rabbit hole. And by the way, don't ever go on WebMD to find out stuff, because you'll end up with 15 conditions you didn't know you had. But so we didn't really rely on the internet a lot. We relied on trusted individuals that we knew had the knowledge and knew that they had because you don't live with a condition like this over the years without making some connections in the medical world, in the alternative world, and just over the years we've just gotten to know people. And so we've checked with those people, and we say, hey, look, this is what's going on. And they said, you know, I can't promise anything, neither can they, but why not give it a shot? It can't get worse. You know, let's try it. And so that's the main source, was trusted people that we knew from other experiences that we had. And it was just, everybody's got a network, no matter what you do, no matter what business you're in, no matter what recreational, whatever it is, I don't care what you're doing. Everybody has a network of people that they deal with to find answers in whatever area of life. That's where we went to, is our network.
Great. So
7 degrees of separation to Kevin Bacon, right?
You know what? In the U.S., it's probably more like 3 degrees of separation in this country, because we've got the internet, we've got all these resources. But yeah, it's a big, that is so true. There's so much commonality and so much connectivity around here that it's not hard to find stuff.
Well, I wish I had met you back then, because I've worked with a lot of people with migraine issues, and I even did a clinical trial with the migraine patients, which are really tough. I mean, anyway, that's
no, I get it. Well, and I'm happy to share, you know, what worked, because it's been a godsend. Through all the searching, and yes, the cranial sacral didn't work. It made it worse. The regular chiropractic, the vagus nerve stimulation, where you literally hold this thing on your neck and it kind of, you know, and kind of almost electrocutes you. It feels weird. I wasn't crazy about that. There was a lot of things we tried, and we ultimately, the crazy thing with the chiropractic neurologist is, so way back in the day, I used to work at Men's Warehouse selling suits. And he would come in back in like 2000, 2001. And this guy, his name's Brad, he came in and bought suits at this place. And I like, we knew him. Every time he started coming, we're like, yeah, Brad's coming. Who's up? Who's gonna make money today? Because he would always come in and buy a bunch of stuff. And so I've known him for so long, but I hadn't talked to him in probably 15 years. And so when I saw him again, I was like, oh my gosh, it's you. This is great. So turns out it was an old connection that was a new connection again.
Great. So Brad's work got you from, and you knew him before, but you got connected back to him with the new separation, and that got you from your 10 to your 6 and got you your reprieve. But you were still determined that wasn't going to, you need to determine that it could be better. So what did your network get you to next? And
so then we were talking to a woman named Dr. Pauline Dillard, who is an amazing marriage counselor that we had seen back in she's actually one of our sponsors of our show, which we can talk about in a minute. But we saw her in 2008 because my sister would not stop talking about this method of counseling. We're like, we're fine. We've only been married 9 years. We haven't screwed anything up that bad yet, you know? But they said, no, it can always be better. Go see her. And so we knew her from way back in 2008. And so she happened to be in an office building that was shared by a place called Harmonized Brain Centers, and they did a treatment called lens therapy, they called it, which is ultimately neurofeedback. For anybody that's familiar with neurofeedback, there are a couple different versions of it. There's one version that requires 50 to 60 sessions to really find a result, and then there's the version that takes 10 to 12 sessions to really find see results. Thankfully, Harmonized Brain Centers does the 10 to 12 version, and I'm very happy about that. And so we went there, and basically what they did was what neurofeedback entails is they connected a couple little clips here, like kind of little jumper cables on my earlobes. And then there are 21 basic centers in the brain, right? Like up here is cognitive thought, back here is memory, back, all the different places. And so they put two little sticky leads with wires coming out of them, going back to a machine on the head twice, two at a time, back, and just send low wave electricity through there for a few seconds at each spot. And sounds really basic, sounds really boring, sounds like almost nothing. But after about a month of that, migraines were gone. They were totally gone after about a month. And it was amazing. And bonus, I got my memory for directions back. I had never been good at directions. I'd have to have written directions. Even if you're my best friend, I've been to your house 10,000 times, still need written directions. All of a sudden, I'm driving around. I don't need my GPS anymore. So I had all kinds of cool stuff come out of that. So neurofeedback was the tipping point to get rid of those headaches at that point. So it was amazing.
Explain the science behind that. I don't know, Dr. Bob.
I wish I could. I have no idea, because I went back after my 2021 brain surgery because I was having similar, I was thinking, well, maybe it'll help this too. Didn't do a thing.
Right.
So the brain is a very fickle animal. It does not always like to respond to the same thing the same way twice.
Is it kind of
resetting,
resetting the synapses to kind of reset and recalibrate?
The best way I have had it described to me is that, and the way I can describe it that makes sense to my brain is, when you're driving through the mountains and you're listening to the radio, jamming, and all of a sudden you go through a tunnel, and you go through that big long tunnel, and in the tunnel everything goes staticky. You can still hear the music, like you're like, you can barely hear it, but it's static over the music. You can still hear it, but you got to fight for it. This takes the static away. Okay. Basically, it's like taking the static out.
Yeah,
and so it's pretty cool.
What I could say is that I'm like a health detective, so I'm listening to everything you're telling me and putting together a picture in my mind. And what I would say is that it's very interesting that the chiropractic neurologist, is that what you call them?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, he worked more than just your head and neck and gross manipulation of the body, twisting and whatever. He worked all head to toe. So he had the best chance of interrupting your global pattern of the neuromuscular system.
Yep.
And that's why he got the benefits. And the other people did not. And then even in the craniosacral, that's a whole other story. I mean,
oh yeah,
if you had gone to like 5 sessions of that, maybe that would have come down. We don't know. I mean, because
maybe
anytime pain moves, that's a big deal. If you're not like aggressively stimulating the pain. So,
right.
but so that didn't work for you. You didn't like that. So you got out of there, which makes sense to me.
Yeah.
I can understand that. And then, but then when you started putting the stimulation on there, and you did that a bunch of times, that's again, interrupting another way of interrupting the automatic pattern. It's having these headaches persist. And so that was an effective interruption of the automatic pattern, whatever the automatic pattern is. We don't know what the automatic pattern is really, but it's a combination, in my view, of the neuromuscular system. It's the soft tissue, it's the muscles, it's the nerves. And when you're getting those intermittent signals, that's helping all those soft tissues. I'll lump them in a category of soft tissues that helps them organize themselves in a way that can regain normal function. So that's my explanation.
Yeah, no, I agree. It does. It makes sense that way, and it's true. I don't know all the ins and outs and technicalities of it. I just know it, but you don't have to for it.
I don't think anybody knows,
right? Nobody knows, but you don't have to know. If it works, it works.
Exactly. And you know what? Have you had to go back for it again?
I continued to do it for several weeks after that because I was like, this is great. If
I want to keep this around. Yeah.
So I kept going for a few weeks after, and then I stopped, and I was like, okay, if anything crops up again, and I started having, I know where to go.
Yeah.
They never came back. So
Amazing. That's great.
yeah.
So that never came back. But then so you had some smooth selling for a while. You know, your shunts were working, your migraines were gone. But then what hit you next, Jeff?
So I had a brain surgery in 2018. Everything was cool. That was kind of inconsequential, nothing to report there. And then in 2021, I had my last brain surgery so far, and that was
We can
that was
eliminate
because
we can eliminate the words so far. Let's just eliminate those.
yeah. Seven's good. We're good. We're done. We're done. Seven's a good number to stop. So last brain surgery I had was in 2021. And that was because I was in the hospital for a week. They tried to figure out why it was causing all these headaches, why I was in so much pain. I wrote all the rides, the CAT scan, the MRI, the X-ray, the whatever, ultrasound, everything. They couldn't figure it out. So they sent me home with pain meds and said, good luck, we'll try and figure it out. And I finally, we went back and they did the surgery. And it turns out they said, I'm sorry, we're probably going to have to do exploratory neurosurgery, which is never a good thing to hear. And so I said, what else are we going to do? Otherwise I'm going to be doped up on the couch for the rest of my life.
So these are headaches that came back.
This is a totally different kind of headache though. This was not the same as what was going on in 14. This was headaches. This was neck. It was like somebody welded everything shut right here and I couldn't move. It was like, I couldn't do this. I couldn't do like nothing.
You were locked up. You were
neuromuscularly, it was all locked up.
Yeah.
And so we got to figure this out. And turns out that exploratory neurosurgery was good because they found out that the tiny little piece that goes from the shunt into the hole in the skull, into the brain to drain that fluid, that little piece was almost 100% clogged. It was not draining anything. So no wonder I was having headaches and feeling terrible.
Yeah.
And so they did that surgery. That was the quickest turnaround I've ever had. I literally went in one day at 10 a.m. I was driving away from the hospital. Well, my wife was driving away from the hospital with me in the passenger seat. 3 o'clock the next day after brain surgery. So quick.
But why didn't they think that it was the shunt right off the bat? Like, oh, you're having symptoms again. It's got to be the shunt.
Well, I thought that's what they explored everything else. Like I said, I wrote all the rides. They did the MRIs, they did the CAT scans, they did the X-rays, they did the
How do they determine
it down?
Do you know how they determine if a shunt's not working?
Well, part of it is they're listening to the patient, and part of it is they've got to listen to me because I live with this thing. It's in my head, not yours. So you've got to trust your patient and what they're telling you at some point, and say, okay, this guy's got 4 decades of experience with this. If he says it hurts, it hurts. And so part of it's your advocacy for yourself in the medical world. You've got to speak up for yourself. And so
when they did exploratory surgery, they were first thing it was looking at the shunt, right?
Well, that's the surgery they were going to need to do to explore what was going on with the shunt and what piece of it wasn't working that was causing this to happen. Right. And that's when they found the tiny little piece, that one little piece that wasn't functioning properly. Yeah.
So you had a good recovery. You spoke up for you, and that's what I always talk about.
Yeah.
As well, you gotta know how to advocate for yourself, or have someone who can advocate for you, and understand the certain clues that the doctor will give you that you should ask a question about something. And so you did that quite well. You had a great turnaround, but that wasn't the end of your story, unfortunately. So what happened? Because you went through a phase where you had some involuntary movement. So what triggered that, and when was that, and what'd you do then, Jeff?
I have no idea what triggered that. The brain can be a very fickle animal, man. You go poking around in there, you never know what's going to happen. But this particular time,
was it after another surgery, or was it?
It was after this surgery in 21.
Okay.
That's when it happened. Yeah, we a few days later, I started. I noticed that, and I was still working at this point. By the way, I was working as primarily a guard and an armed guard in a private Christian school at the time, and I was loving it. I loved that gig. It was a dream gig, and I was loving it. And I went back to work, and it was getting really hard to be there because 2 things happened after that surgery. The brain just went wonky. And that filter in your brain when you're in a crowded space, if you're in a restaurant or a church lobby or a supermarket or somewhere, and there's a whole bunch of people around you, but you're having a conversation with somebody right here, your brain automatically filters everything out and makes it white noise around you so that you can concentrate here normally, right? In a regular situation. Yeah. that filter was gone. I had no filter. And so anywhere I went, no matter how big the crowd was, it was like everybody was plugged into an amplifier, and it was all coming at me at the same volume. There was no filtering happening. And I also came away with large motor tics on the right side of my body. My right shoulder, my right arm, my right leg, all the way down my right side was looking a lot like this.
Really?
All the time. All the time.
How frequent?
Almost constantly.
Wow.
Day in and day out, it was constant, between my shoulder, my arm, my leg. It made it really tough, man. It made it rough, and I could not figure what it was. And I went to 2 different neurologists. They couldn't figure it out. The second one I went to literally said, "I'm sorry, I'm out of ideas. I don't know what, I can't help you." You know,
Well, he's honest.
He's honest,
right? Yeah, he's
actually.
honest. Yeah.
But we ended up finding, to remedy that, we ended up finding, my parents lived in Oregon at the time. Well, they still do. They live in Oregon. And at the time they said, "Oh, Jeff, I think we found something that might work. We'll just come up. We'll fly you up here. We'll pay for everything. We just gotta figure out how to relieve this." And turns out there was a place up there in Bend, Oregon. And this amazing woman named Sharon said, "You know what? Here's what we're going to do." They ended up doing pressure point therapy on my vagus nerve, pressure points therapy is a fancy way of saying they're going to dig their elbow into your vagus nerve from head to toe.
Yeah. So now you like vagus nerve stimulation, and you didn't like it before, huh? So what's that?
Hey, every method's different. Every surgery is different. Every person is different.
And also, when they talk about vagus nerve stimulation, it doesn't have to be that. It could be anything. Anything in the soft tissue. Who knows?
Yes.
Some entrapped nerve up high that's firing off all over the place.
Right. It could be anything. For me, for this particular case, what they needed to do, or what they did, I guess, and it worked, was literally she would literally would lean into the vagus nerve, pressing against the wall. I mean, like leaning her body weight onto my vagus nerve until the pain released. And the pain would release, and then she'd go to the next spot, and the pain would release, she'd go to the next spot.
That's typical of any soft tissue. When you put pressure like that on the soft tissue, for 10, 20, 30 seconds after that, the pain disappears, because you're starting to get blood flow, energy flow, nervous flow, fluid flow.
I thought you would just felt so good that they finally took the pressure point off, that you're like, oh, thank goodness.
That's how they made you feel great. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, they were, I'm an anomaly in a lot of ways, which I've heard my whole life with all this kind of stuff. They said, "Look, you're crazy. I don't know what's happening with you, but you're laughing." I was laughing hysterically. Everybody else in my family that's gone to this person for vagus nerve stimulation
screaming,
cried like a baby, weeping. Yeah. And I was laughing out loud. I couldn't stop laughing when they pressed in harder. I laughed louder. It was nuts.
I think what was going on there was that your whole being knew you were benefiting in some way, and that was really exciting for you.
I think between
psychosis, one or the other. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's a different topic for another show, maybe. But yeah. But I think it was between that and the pain tolerance that I've built up over the last 4 decades from all this other stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, go ahead.
We need to move on to the next section, but because we want to talk about your show, your TV show. But before we go there, I wanted to have you give our listeners advice if they were to hear from their medical provider that you just need to live with it. What advice are you going to give our listeners that just hear that?
That's cute. No, you don't. If I had listened to that, I'd still be doped up on some high dose pain med on my couch in the living room there 10 years later. No, you don't have to listen to that. You know your body better than anybody, and you know how you feel, and you know what your tolerance is for different things. A doctor is just like any other person in any other field of any kind of profession. If you don't like your car mechanic, you get a second opinion. You fire him and go and move on. If you don't like the person that cut your hair, you move on to another one. It's just like, I know they don't like you to think about it like that, but you can get a second opinion. You can go to another doctor. You are not tied to anybody. It is your freedom to do that. So
great advice. Yeah. Great advice. Now, so your personal journey is incredible, obviously, and it led you to the creation of Invisible Conditions. So tell us how that all came about. Why did you decide to do this show? Because of your own experience, or you knew other people that were also dealing with something similar?
Thank you. No, great question. I had not considered this ever. I mean, I was in my dream gig. I was a I was working at a school as a security guard. I was loving life, man. It was awesome, but I had to leave that, and it just so happened that I had gone to a conference a few months before that promoting our nonprofit, which is called Hydro with Hope, which helps people specifically with hydrocephalus. And we were promoting that at the conference, and I happened to a good friend of mine at that conference introduced me to a woman named Julianne, who is the network president of the channel we're on now. And she said, "Tell me your story." And anytime you bring up 7 brain surgeries in a story, people like to listen because it's unusual. Yeah. And so, long story short, we said, "That's great. Let's see where we can go with that." And the rest is history. We launched our show on April 4th of 2023, and we're on every Tuesday and Friday at 9 Pacific, noon Eastern, and we're a 1-hour show. And we interview amazing people from around the world that are living and yet thriving despite some sort of medical condition that's invisible from the outside.
Following up on that, Jeff. So they're having those invisible conditions, but thriving with them. I think we have our views on the commonalities we've seen, but I think, but our wellness heroes, which you are one of them, we do those like once a month. You have done, do this more often. What are the commonalities you've seen in terms of those people living with the invisible conditions and getting to the point of thriving?
The biggest thing I see is they had no choice but to advocate for themselves. They got to a point, most of them got to a point that they had to do, either they lay down and die or lay down and just take it, take the medication and whatever, don't live a full life, or they stand up, they advocate for themselves, they figure it out, and they get going, and not everybody is able to do that. I'm not, and every story is different, and I understand that. But the people that we have had on the show with probably 99.9% of the people we've had on the show have been people just like that. They said, I have this condition, I have this, ailment, but I'm also a speaker, I'm also an author, I'm a business owner, I created this organization to help others with it. They didn't let it stop. That's the point.
I have this crazy idea, Jeff.
What's that?
That it might be really fun on your show to find people with invisible conditions who are struggling and hear their story.
Oh, there's struggle.
Okay, no, but I mean people are not succeeding, people who are not thriving. I don't know.
Yeah, no, and we've had some, but the biggest, my biggest message is hope. I want to instill hope in people's lives, and when you see stories of people that are kicking butt and taking names despite some sort of crazy condition,
yeah,
that gets people excited. That gives people hope, because my audience is not necessarily, probably, there's tens of thousands of people that watch our show every month. So I can't, of course, predict who's watching exactly, but most of the people that are watching are engaging in these stories and loving hearing what people are doing and how it's being, how they're inspiring others, through their victorious stories. So that's the draw, I think.
Sure. That's the main.
And I think, we'll take Dr. Bob. So I want to throw something else out to you here. We'll take Dr. Bob's definition, say conventional medicine, just kind of what we do today. It's a convention here in the West. But the other thing I hear from you and what you say, the commonalities, yes, you reach that point where you have to do something, but some people also may still want to do something, but they're very accepting of the conventional that says, well, if surgery can't fix this, if medication can't fix this, then I'm stuck. And so I think the other part is either some inkling or some knowledge that other things exist aside from medication and surgery, or a driving desire to say, I'm going to find something else. Okay.
Exactly. Well, and that's part of the reason that we created our community that we did. We have 2 communities that we have online, and one of them is called Invisible Condition University, or ICU for short. Mm-hmm. And that's why we created that. We did that on purpose, by the way, Dr. Levine.
I know, that's great.
We didn't want the ICU should not be a thing that instills fear and terror.
Right,
in somebody. It's if you come to ICU, we can help. Yeah. And so we are on twice a month, a couple Tuesdays a month, and that's what we do, man. We have amassed such a resource list of things that we've tried. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Come learn from our experience, learn from all the experience of all the people that we've had on our TV show for the last 2 years. All the people I've interviewed to be on the show, all these people, we're sharing it. That's what we want to do. Yeah.
So Jeff, I just want to point out that with all of my clients, I have to do exactly what you would love to do in terms of instilling hope. I call it future visioning. It's like
Yeah.
focusing on what they really want. It
Yes.
gives them commitment.
Love it. Let's talk
Tell the
about that.
audience real quick, Jeff,
Yeah.
how the ICU, the Invisible Conditions University, what role does that play with your audience outside of the show? It's an
So
online.
that's a good question. Yes, that is exactly what it was designed for. Is yes, people that and I promote it on every show. I talk about it every show because I know that people know people with invisible conditions. Everybody, you can throw a rock in any direction and hit 3 people with an invisible condition, I feel like. So bring them to, if they're struggling, if they're having trouble with what they're hearing from their medical community and they want different answers, that's what this is for. It's like a community of people that want to share what they've tried, and maybe it'll work for you too. I don't,
Yeah, Jeff, I just did you say, like, what are some examples of all these invisible conditions, or did you say that?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I missed it, or
Sure, I can definitely list off some that have been on the show. We've done everything from we've had people on, obviously, hydrocephalus. We started off with telling my story. Hydrocephalus, we've had fibromyalgia, HPE,
what's HPE? What's HPE?
brain.
What's HPE?
You know what? I don't remember.
Okay, it doesn't matter.
There's so many acronyms in the medical world. I just kind of roll with it. Crohn's disease, traumatic brain injuries. Let's see, neurosarcoidosis, which is a really rare form of cancer. Epilepsy, POTS. Let's see.
My point is, it's like
all kinds of
everything.
Stuff.
It's like
I mean,
things.
really,
it's not just hydrocephalus. People need to know that you're out there with a condition, and some of it is not only maybe the word invisible condition also refers to invisible solution in a way. Like there's no solution, right? No easy solution. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. No. You're absolutely right. Yeah. And I mean, everything, I mean, even stuff like we've had people with schizophrenia, bipolar, Tourette's, all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Crazy stuff. Yeah.
So in interest of time, Jeff, we need to wrap things here pretty quickly, but I wanted to make sure that our audience knows how to best help you grow your show and your audience. Are you looking for sponsors right now?
Yeah, that is 2025. We are focusing in right at that. Yes.
What kind of partnerships would make a good community builder and sponsor for you?
Sponsorships. So for me, our audience right now, and since the beginning, our audience has been primarily about 75% of our loyal audience that's been with us since the beginning are women from 45 to 65 years old. That seems to be our audience, is that amazing group of people. And so any advertiser out there that is looking to get their message to that group of people, which is a really influential group of buyers, by the way.
Totally.
That is our audience. And so I'm not interested in like pharmaceutical companies or, medical device producers or anything like that. I'm more wondering, what does that group want in their life? What is a woman from 45 to 65 looking for? Primarily, I'm married to one in that age group. So I asked her, and she said, well, we want to feel good and look good and feel like we're younger and stay healthy and stay fit. And, and so those kind of companies are what we're looking for. So,
okay. Well,
perfect.
Speaking of promotion, have you guys tried this yet? NeuroGum?
No.
Tried this yet? So this is amazing. I found out about this on the #1 podcast in the world, and I thought, if it's good enough for that show, it's good enough for the WellWaveNOW show.
Nice.
But this is a natural way of getting energy and focus. So natural caffeine. There's nootropics in there for energy and focus. Vitamin B12 and B6. It has the amino acid L-theanine, also known as to improve cognitive function. It's well known for that, and it's sugar-free, tastes great, and I've been able to replace energy drinks by chewing this gum. So I know
Breck, I've noticed you've got a lot sharper lately. That's pretty good.
I love it. Yeah. Nice. So refresh your body and your mind with NeuroGum.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Available on sale in the TikTok shop. We'll leave a link in the show notes here. But now back to the show. So in the final segment here, Jeff, it's been incredible to have you on. How do people contact you if they want to be a part of your show, or just have questions about maybe something that they have, an invisible condition that they want some help with?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you for the question. Yeah, if anybody wants to, to ask a question or get in touch with me, my best email is invisible condition at e360tv.com is my email for the show. And so if you have questions about that, or you want to reach out, that's the best way to do it. And if you have questions about the nonprofit, Jeff at hydrowithhope.com is the way to go. But those are probably the two best places to reach out. Anybody that has somebody that might be a good guest, I'd love to talk to them. That's what I do almost all day. If I'm not recording a show, I'm talking to potential guests and potential sponsors that want to be a part of it. So,
by the way, I love your name, the Hydro with Hope. I really like that.
Thanks.
That name. And also, did you say invisible condition?
Yes,
singular, invisible condition.
Yeah. At 360tv.com.
There it is. Yeah. Invisible condition. It's not all in your head.
All right.
And then there's all the places it broadcasts right here. So all those places you can find our show. Primarily, when we record a show, we simulcast it to our YouTube channel or our Facebook page.
Did you say what your listenership is? I didn't remember.
We not specifically yet. The last month that we had analytics reported back to us, we had about 23,000 viewers. So it was pretty cool.
Nice.
So, and we've grown. The cool thing is we've grown in viewership every month we've been on the air, which is such a blessing. So it's been fun.
Thank you so much for being on the show. We'd love to have you back and have you on again, and maybe you can tell us some success stories of some others that you've had on your show as well.
Oh, I'd love that. Yeah. Some of we got so many cool stories.
Yeah, I mean, especially when you told me all the different conditions that you have had on your show. I mean, I'd love to hear all those because I love anecdotes. I love to hear because the anecdotes that guides my work. I mean, because there's a reason why you're in the situation you're in. There's a reason why people recover. So
right. Yeah. I mean, nothing comes out of nowhere, right? This show I didn't just wake up one day and go, you know what I should do. It always comes from something. Most cool things come from some kind of pain, honestly. Exactly. So it's, but if you can make good out of it.
Yeah, I'm hoping something cool comes to me because I sure get a lot of pain from Dr. Bob.
Nice.
I've been very good this episode. I had the slide one.
Normally, Tim's all over me, but we didn't have enough time for all that because we were so interested.
Well, you're welcome.
Story, Jeff.
Yeah, too much bantering sometimes. But hey, so what do we have to look forward to on the WellWaveNOW show? Tim, what's
so we're at a special I'm glad you asked that. We're at a special time next week, end day. We're on Friday as opposed to Tuesday, and at 2 p.m. Eastern. And we're going to be joined by our favorite nurse, Mary Uter, who was an ICU cardiac nurse who has gone to heart to soul wellness, reversing and preventing heart disease naturally. And she educated us. We had that conversation on cholesterols and statin. The real story is cholesterol really the problem, and does statin really help? So now that we've kind of resolved that, and people can go back and take a look at that episode, we're going to go on to now how do we really identify a heart condition, and how really do you take some action on that outside of medication to get yourself back thriving. So that'll be it.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you, Jeff. It's great to have you on the show. Thanks to our studio audience, those following us live on TikTok and Facebook. It's always great to have you here on the WellWaveNOW show. Always remember, wellness, it's in you.